Hello. For example, California, people of New York City, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C. It is recorded their shell game roles and styles, like with the difference between Republican and Democrat. They're making subject treatments to cover up how they already used styles of logic using criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact treatment, nature, quiet aspects, and nature itself as criminal insidiousness. Nature. I am not even a lawyer. Like this Michael Cohen too. But it's not just him. It's the three branches of government standing and retired for what forgiveness is about. Because the intelligence too tied to them at countries A through Z, the same equivalents. They are shared here and there and on off campuses that we're communicating and are communicating tactically other than James Madison and our founders behind his plan communicating. And then we were supposed to, no one even allows honesty about that, let alone about that and how George Washington agreed to help them in that plan and how we were supposed to allow people won't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. You guys pretend it's debatable. You leave out how there's a complete remote slash hyper remote possession of the identities of logic and names at the northern colonies and southern colonies and now states. Still, complete remote possession of their identities, little identity theft, fraud, slander natures. I'm not a doctor, all kinds of medical corruption and roles with the delusions also with Michael Cohen and with Midas Touch Network with people speaking about things like Democrat or Republican, where they're using logic and pretending they can speak for the law. They left out black people's rights of eyes. They left out with the nature itself shows us a breaching method was also involved and is involved. Reassigning this with nature communicates and or with all exceptions as collusions with the breaching method. Fake, fake integrity, fake news. Connecticut's Channel 3 News, Fox Connecticut News, and WTNH have been planting evidences online at locations and with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, in all sides of campuses and religious spots and parks per a method. It is manifest that way. A whole bunch of different countries with them at the same exact time collusion slash S through time, vertical and horizontal confessions were forced by nature itself. The intelligence community is also with nonverbal confessions. A former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, he's involved with nonverbal confirmations and confessions in a 2006 district court case, as his roles with Thaddeus Grabowski and a whole bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News. I never saw him there. Also, his lawyer has roles with all kinds of people involved there, with criminal foreign influence attack, with predicate acts with each agent campus I went to, with people there, were connected with it. And then has roles with the World Trade Center predicate acts. And after it, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, WFSB, they have World Trade Center predicate acts. And the differences of their roles with that and the ones next to them are also recorded involved. And that's with both ways, with the Saudis involved, but also with another, because there were a whole bunch of different countries and cultures involved at the same time. And there are shell games with these words like racism, for example, where how it's a human fact treatment nature. Breaching method is one of the things that true always that slavery was about, with a whole bunch of other laws against every single person at the same time, but they have these subjects separated. They have these cliques and they have inter and intracultural where you leave out cultures full course. Black peoples, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same exact time, projected to us by the identity of all spaceless existence itself, and who denies it has inherent to, active to, and progressive to their qualities and aspects and fact treatment nature as criminal insidiousness nature. And this is demonstrable, black people. I'm not even a lawyer. In other words, so the agencies have roles. There are proofs. They're presenting proofs that they have that is more than just plausible that they change and fake information. And the difference between them guilty with that or Facebook or Twitter. Twitter has upskirt pictures with the FBI where it is relative, also courts. individually grouped with them. In other police departments and forms, they've been switching names. They also recorded themselves pretending it's personal when people mention such as a torture method, extortion, identity theft, fraud, slavery. When could the identities speak for the law of law speak for it? When could the identities? When could the names of the people of the sciences? When did they come together not as criminal and seditious nature, black pupils? In other words, we could force this by, in other words, staying on the things true always that are true always, and not forcing like a debate and uses of passions, emotions, fake, like trying to defend racism. This preaching method set that up. If you pay attention to laws that you don't know about because you had our founders' communications replaced, our founders communicated for us to understand this. The breaching method was a part of their communications. That's one of a big part of the subject of their communications about the Constitution unabridged and why and how we need to appreciate that we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. In other words, per nature, natural law itself. So we could play games with who published the phrase natural law or something like that. How come they don't do it when they use the word deep state? There's a problem because you guys are using other people's intelligence, including the ones that everyone's using, like Woodruff, or what's his name? Bob Woodruff. Whatever, the guy who came with that phrase, deep state. You don't bring up deep state, leaving out how it is measured and maintained and used remotely, clearer than day. Self-valued roles with uses of our founders' words, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out their greater communications, their more finite communications, and that all told exactly the way the breaching method forced, exactly that which was entrenched before America's founders were born, with sick things against every single person having been sustained, northern colonies and southern colonies. You guys, this is relative to where and to how you guys cannot sustain the basic things that nature communicates about understanding the three natures of Native American founders before this, and why and how it's critical to understand before this, and for them too, why and how it's critical to understand that and how. Already, this breaching method had been at A through Z. There are proofs that they took down the mountain in America, where it's America, Mexico. There are proofs that they took down a mountain in northern Africa, and where the Egypt, where it looks like they're trying to build a mountain with the pyramids. And when you take down a mountain, mountains force water to be dropped from the air, and also on top of that, it also on the top of mountains there were ice caps, and there was constantly dripping, and then it saturates the ground, and then it has no more. It's like it has nowhere to go, so it accumulates, and rivers come, and then rivers go to seas. There are proofs there probably more. There is probably more than those two mountain ranges taken down. And there are proofs that they took it down to play that game. So clear, excuse me, clearer than day, as yet unhinged, black pupils. So we could also a whole bunch of other hyper additional things that is true always, which is why it's so important not to hold on to what is not true always exactly the way it needs. You to pretend that you need to counter a racism. These are collusions with keeping other things, others themselves blamed, right where there are obligations to attend, with even little kids can discern. The suburbs have quality aspects in nature that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, roles with the torture, extortion, and fact-cheating nature. Therefore, physical slavery of America's founders, let alone those most leveraged against those words, those laws strictly distinctly because this is a difference racketeering method worse than war crimes. Black pupils, all statutes fail. So thank God, because all statutes fail. In other words, all hell. No, so in other words, WFSB has rules with World Trade Center predicate acts, and they have people about who who have wire crime acts and methods where they act relative to the roles of their database crimes. Uh, uh, um, a Kerr family said they have crimes with the exception like with the side of the park. It has something to do. They have police forms roles and intelligence roles with foreign countries and our own. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their educators, putting sequence shifts in databases and having people recall history, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, rot, identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities and interstates and and internationally, as the ones involved with the World Trade Center attack. These are increasingly in people involved with the World Trade Center and spots and names next to it. And increasingly, Weathersfield police since have been switching names and forging names and doing predicate acts while making confessions. They have Weathersfield police said the name Scalora is involved. They didn't give the whole name. Bob Chase gave the name. And he was supposed to read a police report to me. We didn't read it to me, and he lied. He was influenced to lie about how and why, and he has delusions too, though also juxtaposed. All kinds of evidence is racketed. Real sick people, though, worse too, demonstrably. At all natures of places tied to databases, and then further ones as campuses, and relative to exceptions, because this breaching method uses roles measured and maintained self-value with use of exceptions, the exception nature, syntactically relative ways, tactically alter from how nature has syntactic hyperrelevance to ourselves and to all parts of English grammar and of other languages' grammars. See, these languages were revealed to be taught together, to be following how it is functional, that there is one hyper invisible but still discernible. It is the identity that is hyper invisible but still discernible as why and how we need more than one word for a verb to appreciate it, and why and how they are grouped as they are grouped and not grouped and simultaneously the words for a verb. We are learning about identity. Subjects too. We could only grapple with subjects individual, grouped, and to an extent simultaneously. And what is further slash hyper simultaneous, again, to that as that identity that is not our species bodies, it is not the other species bodies, but it is anyway. It is why, how we have quality aspects, nature the same, distinct, non-distinct, simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous. So at medical campuses in Hartford, Connecticut, and next to them are businesses and homes involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones and intelligence families, names that are demonstrably pretending not to be that or unmarked or whatever. They have acting professors involved too, and these are people planting evidences not just at streets. So they have readings of statutes consciously. The breaching method showed them that they say, oh, you could. In other words, this Midas touch and a Michael Cohen saying, "Oh, you can type whatever on Twitter." They are used and have been used to measure and maintain. Like if you're involved with wire crime acts and methods and falsified police reports, and then you type fake things on Twitter on top of that, that changes everything. And that's what's going on. WFSB has predicate acts with people on, as the people with Facebook too. The differences of their guilt completely, and with and in the differences of when there, or with the on the online, or with the roles with ad placements and the names they had involved with that. It's people all along Route 175 increasingly being confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders that are exploited with the difference of it there at campuses, at other types of database tied locations, or just right back at location /s. And they're putting it on all increasingly. They're showing people need to do and say things with the people around everyone and next to everyone, all sides of everyone. This is maintenance to use /s of other being and haven't been communicated. For nature, with nature showed everyone where our founders showed them. With nature showed us that too. When we had other taught, even when we had other taught for our founders. And in other words, black pupils. So these are people that are using psychiatry words because on a mass scale they've been putting fake transcripts in databases at campuses, including medical and fire. And I caught them with doing things intercities, and I saw how they work. In other words, for a long time. In other words, and they know I recorded this. Not trying to, because you can't record the police and the courts. But they recorded themselves at the same time. Leading up to the World Trade Center attack with the names in collusion /S. In that context and sense. It is also relative to where and to how, clearer than day. Black peoples, again, we have black people's white eyes, nature's identity itself showing us about difference and similarity. Don't forget this because it never stops being about difference / differences. So a whole bunch of people at and next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, they have roles with a Dean Judd and his kids involved with some court family members, including judges and prosecutors of Connecticut. And then hyper additionally, people on, off, and next to, and the difference of that are people driving by the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices. And all natures of conjunctions to it, and the difference of that is people involved increasingly when you ask them correctly. And Eric Oliveri involved all kinds of men and women associated with him with sequence shifts. They have roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, at and next to campuses, intercities, and intra-cities, where they involve also the teachers of the kids and the kids in different natures of organized crime at the same time to make them collusions, increasingly with names at and next to union locations too. Where and how clearer than day when they speak about anything positive or negative, as locations, areas, and states. Their styles and natures of logic forcing this on leaders only capable of self-valuing it as criminal and ceases nature positive or negative or being sensed. So we can't, in other words, we have to be led by what is true always. I'm not even a lawyer. There are proofs that additionally, besides just being true always, slavery having been about a human fact, human nature breaching method, hyper additionally, it is also true always that it was a predicate acts with facts method, delivery / methods, delivery system method /S because it forced all the rules with itself, with its style of its method, leaving out and changing the communications of nature with the differences A through Z, therefore names A through Z, therefore locations A through Z, distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. It is functional how it is a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible black pupils. We were told not to shoot until we saw the whites of eyes. In other words, and there are proofs that it is more practical and it is more probable that even though it is one way seems more probable and practical that our records say that the reason they said that was because they had not that much, they didn't have that much, they didn't have the ammunition, so they had to conserve ammunition, so they had to wait for the people to be right there where they could see their whites of eyes. It is more probable, if you pay attention, the databases were criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Everyone's words, and then further as a group, they were measured and maintained collusions / collusions with the breaching method. Sickly, distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies haven't been entrenched. More than 13 colonies. Our founders had to counter extort at key locations to force people to even fathom having a fraction of the courage to fight for a country. See, people took courage and kept it a criminal insidiousness nature. All natures of things like sacrifices of people who were in the military that lost their lives, etc. With their family members, would they lost? Then we'll have a nature of debate about that. As collusions, while reliant upon criminally foreign influence, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature itself as criminal and citizen's nature, while pretending to be patriot and using that as value to fight nonsense. Search the quality of the fact treatment nature. Search the premises treatments of Michael Cohen and of lawyers A through Z, including the branches of government and the difference between that and intelligence. They're fishing with the FBI for people who will say, oh, I believe in the integrity, and then start putting examples. They weren't even at those locations. They don't know every time they're changing, if every time, to an extent they are. Changing and faking, finite details, and other involvements with people's motivations. They're making motivations mean what it doesn't. For one of the things you're supposed to look for motivations are not even police for. You can know if you don't know something. If you don't know who's guilty or something like that. Think motivations, right? They're making it mean like, oh, it's, murder. You guys have a whole bunch of murders and things like that. You know that was recorded and them things were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed on Facebook like that. It's not about what the people said. It's about what they confirmed. Enzo Faenzo and his cousin will tell you this. A whole bunch of people on off 2 Route Highway and Hangdog Lane have roles next to the state judicial branch offices. Also with Stephen Stocko. And a whole bunch of different courts, judges, and family members involved with identity theft frauds and medicine crimes and mail and wire crimes, plus forging names of foreign doctors. There are proofs that Dr. Shamsi Ali is a foreign doctor. And or in ways relative where they have police forms shared. And there are the confessions of the others I don't know the names of, like with the other countries involved, like Pakistan, Afghanistan, with the corner of South State Highway and 2 Route Highway. Also with people with the name Kerr involved with also with a Ron Adams on Ron Adams is on YouTube with people who with police that have been on Facebook with child offenders and principal upskirt nature. They forced it with a Wethersfield Police Chief Cintron. There are more involved with the FBI on Twitter with more upskirt pictures sent to me on Twitter as one involved to taunt me. Has something to do with a whole bunch of people tied to a former coach, Hagenbach. I never had a personal conversation with him. In other words, he has roles with a whole bunch of people. One of the things tied to mayors too, and leaders of kids and their kids involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes. Now, again, I never spoke with him. But Jonathan Maiano has roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic. Some ways it's them, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. Some ways it's himself. But he's involved with sequence ships with people from other areas who've been planting evidences that way. With as people who have timed collusion /S with various natures of proven child abusers, leaders of the kids first forced. The same names had timed collusions with some KKK, black theme, Latino theme, criminal enterprises theme, etc. And the news at the same time, putting me to fake conversations like with these Mendez police at the Wethersfield the Wethersfield Police Department. And while the news too at the same time pretended I had conversations with the police there as a kid. And or at my house. I didn't have conversations with them in my house. It was an exception in my backyard. We were driving a thing in the snow, and it was just about a 3-wheeler driving it in the snow. In other words, the news is involved with identity theft, fraud, predicate, a whole bunch of different natures of organized crimes at the same time, relative to where and to how they put me in fake conversation with themselves and others about the World Trade Center attack, and with a whole bunch of people involved, collusions with them, planting evidences next to campuses through time. Increasingly, WFSB has roles with people tied to a Sal Saviello, also with body dumping spots. His neighbors, like with the name Fianza, who are also with that next to the state judicial branch offices. Also, Ray Colon recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, repeated. He's going to pretend other. But that and how he has federal evidence of his crimes, falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles with people named Della Fera and Spada, with probate court judges involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, putting in drugs and medicines crimes against each age of fact, treatment nature, with people on off Two Rod Highway. Also, Hartford Hospital said there's a Chet Casper involved with them, and that he's also involved. They're also involved with probate court judges, like a Dr. Shub of Modern Languages has family involved with all along route onto Two Rod Highway, also with a whole bunch of people who have also all along Berlin Turnpike and Route 3 and its conjunctions, like on Elm Street, rolls with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people involved with World Trade Center attacks who have connections to themselves made for themselves, and as timed collusions with Saudi Arabia's identity and with America's. It is necessary to appreciate where and how, per science, not belief at all. I'm not asking anyone to believe or not, just per science. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend this part right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it, per science. Also, I have never heard that said anywhere else, even though it says only defend right here. Per science, also, the beginning of the Quran also has a part right at the beginning that says the only thing that matters more than anything else is that someone is honest about the identity of all space/existence. Are they going to call it Allah or not? It even qualifies that by obligating them not to pray in the mosque for the slightest reason. For example, so you guys have taken the subjects like that. You take the parts of Islam, like wearing the thing. You don't have to wear that. Who says other is going to have inherent to, active to, and progressive to their logic demonstration /s of the same thing. The body of all space/existence, whether you want to call it Allah or not. We only have an extent of it that we can discern. But wherever we have an extent of it, it's complete identity relationship to itself. And the only increasing value of it are three ways only increasing. And we observe this. We learn about what the Trinity is about and the difference between how it is three ways bound and five ways. And the value of the contemplation and observation of that is also bound. See, but we have been systems tactical. So now prayer, rather than be nature's way with contemplation, for example, it's just to figure out cipher, to decipher it. See, this preaching method caught. What is actually recorded are the people defending the passions defending the words, the actual words when they're defending it, and with simultaneously with passions and emotions. It is reliant upon criminally foreign influence, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects, and natures. They have been doing this, including the people countering them with passions and emotions, the religions. And the exceptions in exception nature have collusions. And over that body was and is sensed. And roles pretending not to realize this. Changing, in other words, really why people change in faith, what people say when they use short words proper regarding predicate acts, for example. I'm not a lawyer, but we're going to learn how to use, how we discern, to hyper evidentially. how lawyers originally still all sides of criminal and civil cases, the people involved with the cases, and a whole bunch of different countries individually grouped together, all voicings for humanity. That's what witch trials are about. They're all collusions per worse, and pretending not to realize all the things that they cause and keep. It also demonstrated this, but those demonstrations were also propagated all the roles, and then self-cultivated all the roles, self-cultivated, blaming those nature's demonstrations of on other things, others themselves. That's how you guys got away. We're right where our founders communicated in their subjects. Their subject communicated. There's a breaching method here. There was a breaching method entrenched deeper than they could uproot, go over their heads, and more vast. Had been sustained against every modern country since before they were born, and right through their founders, they did not have free speech. If someone tried to speak that for them, as they gave us means to, we are sensed, and that is adapted to. Our words are changed and faked, and or self-valued rules with that, and or the relative predicate acts with facts into databases method /s rules relative. So please, you guys, pick one thing I say. Don't change and fake what I say on a mass scale. Pick the predicate acts at the World Trade Center attack context right before it, because these are the ones here in Connecticut with the same ones involved as the ones in Washington, D.C. Then we can examine how Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania was involved. Note with the Constitutional Convention and with the Declaration of Independence still described for the breaching method, still described exactly the way the breaching method trained and maintained everyone's self-valued rules described in the Constitution, the Constitutional Convention, and the Declaration of Independence, rather than how our founders communicated for us to understand it. Black pupils, yeah. Please, WFSB, Connecticut Channel 3 News. There are a whole bunch of natures of organized crime tied to a whole bunch of things that Wethersfield Police faked with you, a police chief Centron. And this is making ongoing problems, and there are more people involved with violence, weapons, poisons, smoke problems, and more doctors, like a Leahy family pretended conversations with me. And these are with this police chief Centron with the Mazzucato Bakery not far from you. Connecticut Channel 3 News, WFSB. And these are World Trade Center predicate acts. You attached me to fake conversations with you about the World Trade Center. There were a whole bunch of Saudis and Americans involved there with you too, with people from Korea, people from Italy, people from, in other words, please get on paper, because a whole bunch of people that went to Wethersfield High School, and I don't know which schools they went to, but a whole bunch of people tied to people with the name Kerr and DeMar and Kalal, further involved with the principal upskirt nature, and with Phil Kalal and others involved with Police Chief Centron. So WFSB is not helping me. And the police have been faking and changing phone transcripts and police reports, fake ties to me as a kid, now as an adult. 2 Mendez police are involved intercities with this and on off the campuses with child offenders, including sexual and medical, at the same time as legal ones. All sides of criminal and civil cases, and child prisons and adult prisons have been collusions with all kinds of predicate acts and natures of organized crimes. Also with people at and next to the Connecticut corrections offices and at next to the judicial offices, increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slingers, and federal predicate acts methods at each of the campuses I went to, is another thing I'm learning, where how they're confessing also with silences, and where how they've been readings of statutes and precedents, like regarding what's said on Facebook and YouTube. They have Facebook, they're covering up their live progressions because their roles with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the interbranch names, the news at the same time. names at and next to even body dumping spots. At the same time, all these things were brought up at the same time, intercities, also relative to where and to how they got along so far. Um, Changing subjects and keeping subjects, leaving out relative things and exceptions and exception nature properly. Black pupils. So that we're gonna list the things that it is true always. And while we're doing this, we're gonna observe that other things, others ourselves, are being and have been blamed. And where they're being blamed on other things, others ourselves, then what's nature showing us itself. We're going to observe how they're also doing it because our founders also communicated for us to blame things like the breaching method on things that are still blamed on our founders. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought ways, reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw factory, nature, quality aspects of nature, styles A through Z through campuses, A through Z abridged and use collusion /S with use /S of the differences of campuses A through Z, where it is appreciated, where suits and ties, counters and exceptions stand, and speak or whisper creed. Seek way more deep.